So yeah, there's all just buses come around. They just come out, bunch of guys, and just beat people up. One even like just take you. They will beat you up and then take you. And all of the young people, like 20, 30 years old, they are completely not pro Putin. No one likes Putin because they know what's going on exactly.
You have a unique perspective that a lot of people, especially in Arkansas, do not have, of living under Putin for a large portion of your life. You left Russia in 2022.
Correct.
So why did you leave at the moment you did? And when you left, did you have any idea that this was going to happen? What are the motivations for Putin to end the war? Is Putin affected at all by public opinion? Did you think 9/11 was done by George Bush? We are here today at the University of Arkansas. I'm Harrison Carruth with Inherit Politics, and today I'm joined by my friend Daniel, who was once a Russian national, and now he finds himself in the United States. Would you like to introduce yourself and kind of tell your story?
Yeah, of course. My name is Daniel. I'm from a small town in central Russia called Ufa. In 2022, I enrolled in the work and travel program, which is basically summer work and travel program for students across the world, basically. But in States, mostly it's for what you can get mostly Dominican, Colombian, Thai students also, and some parts of Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan. They used to come here. And my work was as a lifeguard in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and that's basically how I met Harrison.
So we met, what was that, 2021?
2022 in May, yeah.
So it's been two and a little bit of years now.
Yeah.
How's your life changed in the United States?
Dramatically a lot, I would say. It's such a different world. Is just mind blowing. Because Russia and USA, they have, I would say, many similar things. Like the whole thing with states, and Russia is also kind of a federation. Because my republic is also kind of state, in Russia, and it's also really diversified. There's no one nation like in America, basically here in States, because Russia is just so multinational kind of country. Each republic has a culture, they have their own language, the whole cuisine, ethnicity, everything is kind of different depending on where you go in Russia. But I always think the big difference is everything. It's just so different. It's complete opposite of what do you see.
So you worked really hard. You, Miro, and Nick, right?
Yeah.
You guys worked really hard, and I've kind of followed your journey from afar of when you guys saved up, got your first car, got a BMW, rented a house in the hood of Hot Springs. Very modest, we'll say that. But you guys worked super hard, and then you were just one day, Harrison, we are going to Chicago, and y'all just up and went, and you're making it work. So what was the transition like from Hot Springs, Arkansas to Chicago, Illinois?
So that's a really interesting question, because the first time when I came to the States, my first landing in the land of America, land of the United States, was in Chicago, in the O'Hare Airport. And then the first thing I saw was the downtown, because I was flying from Vienna, Austria, so I was flying through Canada. So I got to see the Michigan Lake, and I see the downtown, the skyscraper is cool, and I just see the plane keeps going further and further and further. So I just see rolling, and I see nothing but big blocks. So if I'm getting correctly, even Chicago is just even wider than Moscow. It's just you won't see the horizon, just small suburbs, towns all over spread out. Very kind of American way, I would say, of building anything. But I was really shocked by it, just the sizes. Everything is just enormously big. The airport is like the biggest airport I think I've ever been to is out here, I guess. Except maybe Dubai has a big, or Turkey and Istanbul, it's a really big airport. But I'd say our here was like huge.
Very big.
And then you just go in there, everything, huge halls, everything just huge, enormously large. And they still lowered the American flags. So I just, I landed. Then I have to go through customs. So, and I think Nick and Mero, they got actually issues with the customs. They were actually double checking. They took them to a different room to actually, investigate them. And I was lucky. I just gave the papers, and he looked at me. He said, have a good day, and he just let me go. So I was the first time, I just stepped on the American land, and I see the American flags. Yeah, it's like, so I had spent 4 days in Chicago. That was a really interesting experience. I was just still like not even getting where I am. I just felt like almost lost and all these kind of things, because it's just so random. Since I've been maybe like 20-ish countries in the world, maybe a bit more, and the states are just nothing like states. It's just America. It's just since America is just one thing and nothing else in the world like this. And then from Chicago, I had to go to Arkansas Hot Springs. So that's basically my kind of start. So the start of the journey in America was in the Hot Springs, and it's also really it's so different from Chicago. It's real quiet. People are really kind of hospitable, I would say. Really nice people, nice folks, and
more old people.
More old people, and it's really kind of small. It's a small village of Hot Springs, which is from Chicago. It's so different completely. Yeah, I've seen many people. I've seen first in my life some pickup trucks all over, and anything like this. It was like really interesting experience, I would say.
So, a lot of why I run this channel, why I do this is I try to like break stigmas about talking about politics. It's okay to talk about. It should be talked about. We should be having these discussions about like what's going on in the world, especially like in the United States. If we want a functioning democracy, we should be able to talk to each other about the issues that are happening. And one day, you may become a citizen, and you may be,
I hope,
one of these voting people.
Hope.
Yeah, which is very exciting. But you have a unique perspective that a lot of people, especially in Arkansas, do not have, of living under Putin for a large portion of your life, and then having moved to the United States now, and then just having witnessed your first election cycle with the 2024 election.
Oh, yeah.
You can kind of give us some insight. We don't really have a lot of, I guess, qualifications to really talk about how Putin thinks, how Zelensky thinks, the dynamics at play there. All we can kind of do is observe what Trump does in comparison. That's really our point of reference. I'm gonna see if I can turn this air conditioner off.
Yeah.
All right. So, Putin, do you think he'd be satisfied with the pieces of Ukraine that he has now? It's not a small amount of area. It's like a fifth of previously Ukraine land, like not including Crimea. It's a large chunk of land. Do you think he has other interest in invading countries in Eastern Europe, or do you think he'll stop?
Well, it's a good question. Really depends. I would still think he would try to conquer some more land and just keep doing like little by little, like he always did. So already like since almost 20 years he's been doing this. So little by little, but he got all these lands already.
So where did it start? So Putin gets elected. When was it?
He was in a KGB when was the USSR. Then what was he doing? I think he was some of the guards of Yeltsin. And then Yeltsin, in December 31st, in 1999, he resigned. He just went on TV and said, I'm so sorry, I cannot do this anymore. I gotta resign. And right with that, within a week, I think, if I remember correctly, they announced Putin, he will take over. So he wasn't even elected. They just gave it to him. And since then he became a president. And one of the first things, really remarkable things happened is that there was many kind of like terrorist accidents going in outskirts of Moscow, in some small towns like Ryazan, and there is a term called Ryazan's sugar, which what happened is that at some point some just apartment blocks were just blown from the basement, so the whole house would collapse, and as everyone is shocked, and Putin calls it as a terrorist attack. But most likely what actually happened is that they kind of made these attacks, because right after these attacks his ratings went up, like skyrocketed, just below whatever, above all the levels, just skyrocketed like into the sky. And then he kind of called all the tourists and he did this, and then since then he started ruling. And it happened again after his elections or before his election, I forgot, in 2014 or 13, I think. Also, one more thing happened like this in some other region town. Also, the whole house was blown from basement. And I think it was before his elections, and also went up again.
So who was he blaming the terrorist attacks on?
I think somewhere from Afghanistan or Chechnya.
Okay.
Somewhere from like Middle East.
Gotcha. I'd like to take one little side note and ask you this question. From your perspective, did you think 9/11 was done by George Bush?
I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I do think that the terrorists were involved. But at the same time, what really kind of confused me is that how could they just go in an airport and just got all the just hijack 4 planes at the same time in all this air kind of security system.
I think it's a little bit fishy.
So
it's a very interesting dynamic, like you talked about with the false flag operations in Russia, where so there was a terrorist attack allegedly, and then his poll numbers went phew.
Yeah.
So one of the president with the highest approval rating in recent modern history, in the United States history, was George Bush. He hit the 90s after the terrorist attack.
Yeah.
So that's just an interesting side note, and I wanted your perspective on that. But so there was a terrorist attacks going on. What happened after that?
Yeah, so it happened again in 2015 maybe or 16. So before his elections, if I'm correct, it happened. Same story as in the late 90s when they happened in Ryazan. So the whole building collapsed. People died. Putin said it was terrorist attack. His ratings went up. And last year in Moscow, I think was one of the biggest shootings in past decades, I would say. In one of the shopping malls, just terrorists came inside, just started shooting people like just out of nowhere, basically. And hundreds of people just died, and also was kind of a terrorist attack. But and he was claiming that the tourists came somewhere from Ukraine part, and they were departing towards Ukraine on the car, but they were stopped and they were jailed and etc. But also after this, his ratings went up again.
After he caught them, or after the government got them?
After justice happened, and then he made kind of a Memorial Day for all this kind of happening thing, and then after that, basically, his ratings went up again.
So when did he start taking land?
So the earliest I remember was I guess it was it was with Georgia, with the Georgian conflict. Then they took this part, which is not recognized by anyone. Then they took, if I remember, Crimea, which also no one. They did put some sanctions actually for the first time. Some bigger sanctions, and no one really cared about that. And then Russian currency just went down dramatically because it was before 2013, so $1 would be like 30 rubles, which was like really kind of golden times in Russia, because you can really go and afford a car, you can go afford to go abroad, and since then it just dropped, and it really changed many things. And then what else next happened? Yeah, so then there was some local fights going in Luhansk and Donetsk, which Putin was just supporting pro-Putin people. And
so Luhansk and Donetsk in Ukraine.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this was going on back then. This was a
Yeah.
long time ago. Okay.
Yeah, so it was just kind of, there was the Putin oppositions
Mm-hmm.
who wanted to separate this Luhansk and Donetsk regions, and not officially, but like just kind of unofficially, Putin was just supporting them, giving them ammo, etc., whatever they needed. And yeah, after that, basically, they kind of pre-planned it. So by the Biden's term, when it was like 2 years, it would need them like 1 or 2 years to get some part of Ukraine, and he kind of get what he wants, because they're gonna now, I guess, just divide it, because Trump, I guess, won't really go on war. But at the same time, he wouldn't really risk it with Trump to go on full kind of invasion into Ukraine. But since it's already a conflict, it's here, and there's one more conflict in Middle East, and in things like this, where basically, it looks like kind of planned ahead.
So one of the things that a lot of people who have been following the election, following Donald Trump in general for a long time, have noticed is, so one of his biggest claims is he claims that Putin would have never invaded Ukraine had he been elected in 2020. Do you think that's an accurate statement? Do you think Putin viewed Joe Biden as a weak leader?
It kind of makes sense, because that's what I'm kind of thinking of, because Biden wouldn't really do much, and they really just let him go and do this basically. And I'm not sure if that would really happen. If maybe it would have happened if the Trump was there, because even when Trump was there was still kind of just regional conflicts,
Mm-hmm.
like in Luhansk and Donetsk, there was still like fights and bombings, and Crimea was still kind of occupied by Russia unofficially and not recognized by anyone, just by Russia and his few allies of Russia. So maybe yes, but I would still think that since Biden is kind of weaker on on the whole like political rink across the world, he chose specifically that time to invade.
So with Biden's reaction in 2022, so Biden's elected, he's in there for 2 years, Putin invades, Biden does not send U.S. boots on the ground, which is a popular move in the United States, because the United States doesn't want to get involved in a foreign conflict, especially one with another superpower like Russia. That would be a disaster. But what Biden did was he sent billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of weapons and money to Ukraine. What do you think Putin did in response to Biden's support through money and weapons?
I mean, he just kept invading Ukraine.
Just kept going.
He just kept going, because the difference is, because I think if you compare countries by military budget annually, Russia would be in top 3, I think, because most of the budget would go not in the country, but in the country's military budget. Actually, from the whole budget of the country, it would be one of the, I think it's not even, I think the top thing is going to be military. So he wouldn't really care. And then since the invasion started, there is so much propaganda and to involve there, and you get really lots of money if you just go to the war in Ukraine, and if you get some injury or like something like this, you'll get paid. If you even die, your parents or relatives will get paid. And the other thing is that there is many people from jails, so they promised them money and amnesty in exchange to actually go and fight in Ukraine. So they had what they did. And the thing is, it's just like so many like crazy people, like pedophiles, or like really like people who kill people, and they just send them.
So one of the biggest things in the United States is the military-industrial complex. So you have these big weapons companies, right?
Right.
That get government contracts. They lobby for big. They're essentially like they're doing better when the country is at war. Is there, so for example, like Gazprom, right? That's one of Russia's biggest companies, like gas, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So do they do better? Are there other companies within Russia that do well when war is happening?
So if I'm correct, they're actually kind of boosting things. I mean, yeah, like just like in the U.S., so they would go and produce more. I think what was I couldn't really name the exactly things that we're producing or making better, but certainly yeah, because like I said, the number one, I think it's either top three or like number one budget is gonna be for military, and then the rest.
I asked that question because we're at this moment, so it's 2025 now. The war's been going on for a long time. Russia has lost a lot of soldiers. Ukraine's lost a lot of soldiers. Ukraine has a lot less men than Russia does. And since Putin's already been so invested in this war, really, can you tell me what are the motivations for Putin to end the war?
To end the war? I mean, I guess if he had I mean, more resources and time, maybe he would just invade even the whole Ukraine. But so it's the different thing is that how he calls it not the war, and he said he didn't start the war. What he says on the TV on the propaganda is that it's a special operation, how he likes to call it, and then he says that the Russian minorities in Donetsk and Luhansk, were so oppressed by the Ukrainian government, and he says that Ukrainian government is full of Nazis, and there's a bunch of Nazis in Lugansk and Donetsk. So he sent troops to protect them, how he calls it. But it's just a big propaganda, like how he makes it on the TV, and what he would tell, and elderly would actually even believe this, because since like Soviet people, they don't they never had any choice. They would just all watch TV and believe what's on TV. And so this big diversion is that all of the young people, like 20, 30 years old, they are completely not pro-Putin. No one likes Putin because they know what's going on exactly, because they have internet, they can see, they travel out the world. And people over 40, they're really mostly Soviet people, Soviet-born people, like conservative. They're not really good with internet, or even if so, they are really kind of patriotic. They claim themselves, and they would just stick to that kind of Soviet things. So USSR was such a nice place. Then they like to say Stalin was a nice person. Putin is just the best leader. He does so much for the country, etc., etc., etc. But if you give them an argument, they won't really answer the argument, but they're just gonna say that you're not a patriotic person, and that's it.
So, going off of that, you left Russia in 2022?
Correct.
So, the war started in February 2022,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
So, when did you leave, and why did you leave at the moment you did? And when you left, did you have any idea that this was going to happen?
It's actually a really interesting question. So I enrolled in the program back in September of 2021. And at that time, basically we were doing papers, paying some fees. And that was before even the war started. There were some rumors already, like I think in December, January, on some international news that there is a bunch of troops coming to the Russian-Ukrainian border from Russian side, and Putin said that it was just trainings and something like this. And actually, there were warning signs already, but no one really took it seriously because no one would imagine that someone in 21st century would
Mhm.
just would put a full invasion on basically a brotherhood country
Yeah.
like by your border. So
What were you thinking? Were you paying any attention to that, or were you
so
focused
I
on
saw
like, your
this, but
program?
I was thinking that's impossible. Like you cannot just go and invade the country in 21st century. Like this is just like something that has never happened like for a while. Yeah, and I was really shocked that everyone was so confused. Like I didn't believe it actually happened because I was thinking that they kind of so kind of for me is kind of overreacting because I would say I wouldn't really believe that he would just go and invade it because then there's gonna be a bunch of sanctions and it's just gonna make such a mess in the world politically and economically, and it did happen. It was very confusing. Why and what was the point? So yeah, then we enrolled in the program in September 2021. Then we already chose Arkansas and Hot Springs, and I think in about late December, January, that's when we have chosen the place to go. Then I already booked my interview for visa, for American visa, J1 visa in Dubai. This is where I was supposed to go and get it, and Dubai had 90% acceptance rate. So that's why I booked it there, and the tickets were so cheap. It was like I think $50 one way, even actually maybe round trip I forgot. But worst case, a one way ticket was $50 from Moscow all the way to Dubai.
Wow.
Yeah, and to live in Dubai, it's you can get some like hotel motel thing, like some cheap thing. Also for like 200, $300 I think for like a week,
Oh wow.
which is
okay.
also not really expensive for
Yeah.
like for Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
And then
So did you leave before the war started?
So I left after the war.
After the war started.
So yeah, and my interview date was March 31st.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And already the war started on February 24th. That's when he invaded Ukraine. And right after that, the same week, already one of the guys who was supposed to be first on the list from our agency to get interviewed there. He got declined. As the first one, he had declined, and he said there was no really specific reason. Then other people came to Dubai, they got declined. And by April, March, there were like already like 60 people or 50 people, and only 3 got accepted. Everyone else was declined. And those who were accepted, they already been to America before. So they already had the J1 program, they were enrolled like 1 year ago or 2 years ago. They already been in the same program, and it's like second time, and only them were allowed in the console. Everyone else, no matter what case, with a Russian passport, was just declined. And I had interview on March 31st, so I have a month left, and I know that I'll be declined, because it's really kind of political thing going on. And I was searching, I found that Cyprus, that land of that small island by Greece, they actually also have a consul office there. So I was trying to look. So I was like, it's 6 a.m. at some point. I was searching. I found one spot for me, so I booked it. So I paid one more fee for that. And because on Cyprus, even after war, there was such a high acceptance rate still. So I was lucky for this. And only a few people weren't accepted, but it was really kind of simple cases. One guy, he was 25 and he served in Russian military for a while. I mean, that
makes sense.
It's obvious why he's not
Mhm.
approved, especially after the war started. Then the other guy, he was studying nuclear chemistry in military, so he was delayed with the papers because they made him have like a double check. So he had to stay there without a passport for like 2 weeks, I think, in Cyprus, something like this. And I think he was declined too. Also makes sense because just studying nuclear chemistry going to US,
Yeah.
which is weird. And there was just one girl, but it's kind of really stupid thing because she just didn't change her passport. Her passport was one surname, and in her real name was the other one. She got married, she just didn't
Okay.
change the
Didn't change
papers,
the name.
and she got declined. It's
Yeah,
obvious.
that sucks.
And yeah, everybody else was actually accepted. I was really lucky to find Cyprus. Nick and Miro, they went to Poland, and in Poland it was 50-50 also. It was right before, in front of them, they said that there were people, and few people declined right in front of them, and both of them were accepted. So they were like really lucky. And in Cyprus also, I met a few guys from different agency, also from Moscow, from Russia. They were somewhere from Russia, and they got declined in Poland, but they're lucky enough to find a spot in Cyprus. So from Poland, they went to Cyprus, and they got accepted still.
Gotcha. That's crazy. So the war started, and you were in the whole mess of this. So like basically anybody with like a military affiliation
Yeah.
was denied
Yeah.
visas.
Yeah.
Correct. And these were visas to the United States
Correct.
specifically?
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense. With the war where it stands now, so it's been going on for a long time. Do you think Putin is really open to ending the war, or does he like how things are going? Would he become more popular if the war ended within Russia? Is it not really affecting him?
So I think what I think actually is going to happen, since I think they're just going to split Ukraine, and for Putin is also going to be a benefit because he gained all this enormous land with the Crimea and everything. It's going to go to Russia, which he wanted, and then in Russia, since the war is going to be ended, since then I guess they'll slowly drop sanctions, which work really bad because when the country gets sanctioned, it takes years to recover from sanctions. But I guess he just wants kind of USSR back, so he doesn't really care about sanctions, since I believe there's a bunch of things. Since war started, all of the foreign companies, they left Russia, and what they did, they just made sub companies, like McDonald's left, and they just made Вкусная точка, which is actually everything is same as McDonald's, but it's just kind of literally what it means is that it's tasty and that's it. That's literally what it means. So they took over all McDonald's locations, which is rebranded into this other brand, and that's basically it's really kind of same actually. Everything is almost the same, except then Coca-Cola is imported to Russia, but people you can import it through Georgia, for example. People from Georgia, Armenia, so you can still import things.
So there's ways around it.
It just now it's not straight.
Yeah.
And same thing through I think European countries. They cannot get something from Russia directly, so they import from third countries and to the Europe again.
So the economic situation has changed with logistics and things, but you can still work around it. I guess what I'm asking in regards to how it would affect Putin domestically is, in the United States, a lot of us think about the president, if their government or himself has a low approval rating, they're doing a bad job, they're unpopular, they're not going to get reelected. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Putin doesn't really have to worry about getting reelected. He's been reelected many times with interesting circumstances. But is Putin affected at all by public opinion, and is there any pressure from the public, especially the younger generation, to end the war?
So so the biggest opposition was in Russia was Navalny, basically. He started doing the positions in some late 2000s, if I'm correct. And then there were actually more politics. And one by one, they were, on some really interesting circumstances, they were found dead. Well, they passed away or something happened, and or you get jailed, or, something else happened. And so the Russian kind of FBI was also really involved in all this kind of, among young people and politicians. So they would kind of, either give them the choice or to kind of bribe them or, give them some opportunities to work with the Russian government and not go into opposition, basically. And I wouldn't really say that it's going to affect him much, because I would probably say even his rating's gonna go up because when they're gonna agree on some Ukrainian kind of conflict with Trump, um, most likely he'll claim just get all the land back, and he'll claim that now we saved the Russian people in Ukraine who were kind of pushed back with the Ukrainian kind of Nazis,
Okay.
how they he
Yeah.
calls them, and I think his rating's just gonna even go, kind of skyrocket again.
You think what?
It should skyrocket again, like really.
Oh,
level the
okay,
sky,
okay.
As
Okay.
and all this kind of in Russia, military attacks, all these terrorist attacks, all these
Mhm.
things. He was also, they kind of happened at specific points also, and after each of them, his ratings used to go up all the time, and also it makes it kind of clever because it kind of distracts, Russian, all the citizens, because since the war's going, people will kind of start to wonder what's going on actually, and then he has a terrorist attack, his ratings go up, and etc. So people, kind of look here and there and get really confused, so they forget about the war.
So you think he has domestic control, domestic opinion, the public, what they think really doesn't matter, but it's not that, the public isn't really, it's not mass revolts all the time. It's,
So
there's like, explain that.
So yeah, I would say that look like right now, since 2014, what happened is that if you would go and protest, even in schools or even in universities, people from police would actually come to you in a class and tell you, hey guys, just so you know, it always happened right in front of before the protest happened, like a week before or maybe a few days before. And they would explain that you cannot be on unsanctioned protest. So like in America, like in the United States, there is a sanctioned protest. You just go basically by mayor office or something like this, if I get it correctly. I have this protest. We'll go. They set up the date, and they put police people around. Make it kind of safe, and people go and protest. In Russia, here's the thing: you can do the same thing. But if the protest gonna say, we are opposition to Putin, Putin is a criminal, Putin is killing people, they're just not gonna let you go and protest. So you have no choice. You have to, if you want to be in opposition, you have to be in a legal opposition, basically by the laws of constitution. So, you would go and protest. It's gonna start. Then bunch of like police buses gonna arrive. All these guys, with the shields. With bats. They're just gonna go, tell everyone go away. No one's gonna go away, and they're just gonna start beating up people like randomly. Like if you kids, elderlies, they just beat you up, put you in that bus, take you to jail. Have you been there for hours, and then it depends what's gonna happen next. There is many kind of solo protests. We were in Moscow. And people will just get picked up and go to jail for like 3 years, just for a protest.
Oh, just a few years.
So you get expelled, you pay the fee, and you go in jail for a few years, and plus you get beaten up.
Oh my gosh, it's years. So they get years for
You can get like
just
years
protesting.
for protesting.
That's crazy.
You can literally get the years.
Wow.
For that. So the biggest thing happened in St. Petersburg. So St. Petersburg is actually really one of the kind of most liberal parts of Russia. It's really it's people really open-minded. They are more into having protests. They are more into actually looking what's going on in the world. It's really kind of more. I think it was one of the first kind of Europeanish cities since Peter the Great. He was like really into St. Petersburg, and yeah, the less protests, they were just, if you can just go on YouTube, you see the protests in like Russia, Petersburg, or Moscow. So yeah, there's all just buses come around, they just come out, bunch of guys, and just beat people up. One even just take you. They will beat you up and then take you down. And it doesn't matter because you can see in like footage, it's just like old grandma from like she's like 80. She's seen like World War II. Her parents were in a revolution in civil war in Russia, and she would be with like a poster like stuff like like peace or like no war, and they would come to her, actually beat her up, and take to the bus. No matter what age you're at, they would just sit there and beat you up. So after that, not really many people want to risk and go and protest because you just go in jail for a few years.
Yeah.
Or, even worse many things, and you get expelled from university, and, once you go to jail, you want to find a good job, and, it's just going to be the rest of your life in your resume because you were in jail.
That gives some good perspective, because a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people that are like, why doesn't the Russian population, why don't they go protest Putin? Why don't they go like lead in opposition? But that's good perspective. Within Russia, there's very harsh penalties, and within those big urban centers, there's a heavy police force that has the capability to crack down on protests. That's super interesting, and I don't think in the United States a lot of us realize that, with how you can just usually most of the time go out and have a protest and think nothing of it. So let's talk about the Donald aspect of this.
Mm-hmm.
So with Donald being in the White House again, what do you think has changed? Because so while Biden was president, there was no conversation about ending the war. As soon as Donald Trump gets in the office, things start happening. Why is that?
Well, basically, because is I got it correctly, like Trump, he's really oriented on inside countries things, and Putin is actually oriented more on outside things because he doesn't really care what's in the country. He cares about outside the country, and he wants more land and gets more power with him and all these Russian oligarchs. Basically, I guess that's what they want. And then, and I don't think Putin really will continue the war. Trump really also want to continue the war and even send the troops there, because then it's going to be an actual like war conflict in USA and Russia. And Trump is more oriented to, I mean, even like what he said, he wants Canada and Mexico as a states, and he wants to take over Greenland, which is kind of a little bit, kind of sounds like Putin actually, a little bit,
really?
Okay. If you like, because you just taking over your allies. Like he took over part of Georgia, which was always an ally. He took part of Ukraine, which is an ally basically, and I guess he will take some part else.
Interesting. I guess we can wrap up with like your prediction of what you think will happen. So Putin and Trump have talked about meeting in Saudi Arabia. Do you think that's going to happen? And do you think that if a settlement is reached, what define the parameters you'll see around a settlement?
I do believe actually it's gonna happen, because I'm not sure if he ever met Biden. Putin and Biden, they ever met?
No, Biden never talked to Putin.
All right. So, because I remember Trump and Putin met before, and pretty sure they actually meet. And what I think is like I mentioned, I think they're just gonna end it where it is right now. So what is occupied by Russia is gonna go to Putin. They're probably gonna make a buffer zone, right? And the rest, I guess Trump may be investing some in Ukraine in order to get all the aluminum, anything like kind of all these kind of metals to export back to USA. And as from his perspective, he also has a conflict, with Israel, and obviously since Israel is a ally of the United States, they'll also support Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna focus on Israel, I guess, and he's gonna focus on inside of America. And I guess like he is really ambitious to get also like Greenland or Mexico or Canada. So he would either I think he already did tariff. He already put some high tariffs on them in order for them to send troops to protect the border actually from the states. So I think that would basically happen, because for Trump, he's mostly oriented on inside politics of, I guess, USA right now.
And then we'll conclude with a really important question. So, if this war ends, what would be the best deterrent to prevent Putin from doing something like this in the future?
I don't think something is just gonna prevent, because I do believe at some point, not while Trump is in office, I don't believe that he's gonna do this, but once someone like Biden is gonna be back, I guess he'll just do it again. Because I'm not sure how long he's still, but if you compare like Biden, Trump, or Putin, Putin is relatively young compared to them. He's like 10 or 15 years younger. I think he's 68 or 67.
Something like that.
Something like that, but then they're like 82, 84, or whatever. So I think he will still be in office as usual. Maybe at some point they'll make one more puppet like Medvedev for one term, or maybe he'll resign. But since I still like Putin, I don't think he actually controls everything. Or like even Trump, it's still it's kind of politics. So there's people behind the people, and they make the budget, and they have their interests, and all over combined. That's how things go. They just kind of need a person like Putin to do because he's on the world ring, right? On this whole world like area, Putin among the other countries, he is kind of respected, and people really kind of, even in America, a bunch of people I see here, they're not telling them like I'm Russian. Oh, I like Putin, and I was like, why? I think he's cool.
He has respect. Yeah.
That's how no one even knows him, and he really has respect. So that's why they keep Putin in this kind of chair.
Thank you very much, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate for having you in
Absolutely.
his office.
That's super cool.